what's the bigger mission here? Like, what are we doing with AI? And if you haven't got that balance right, people are just going to look at the technology and say, lovely, but I don't want to use it.
Welcome to the Gain podcast. I'm with Isabella Wilson, the founder of Tyde.AI. Isabella, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Looking forward to it.
The pleasure is mine. Can you give us a brief introduction and background about yourself and what you do?
Sure, yeah. So I'm an AI consultant, currently residing in Dubai. I started my career in media communications, strategic communications. And after a couple of years of doing that, I actually set up the emerging technologies capabilities of a advisory firm in Dubai. And from there, I kind of launched into generative AI. So helping businesses and teams leverage generative AI strategically to drive business value, to also kind of mitigate risk. And that then took me on to a new journey, a new chapter of actually doing it for myself. So setting up my own business that focused on specifically helping small to medium-sized teams be able to access this technology and use it for good within their business, while also managing the risks that it comes with. So I've kind of gone from a journey from non-AI to AI, and then my own setup. So yeah,
it's a beautiful transition, though. It's wonderful. We are at the Gain Summit, so I want to ask you, what has been your experience in day 2?
Okay, it's a good question. So I've been kind of like moving around, kind of popping in and out of panels, and generally speaking, I really am loving the vibe, the kind of environment that's going on. There's a lot of people here, and I think the consensus is that there's a lot of positive kind of movement happening in the space of AI. One announcement that I really kind of found was interesting, and I wanted to share with people, was around how Saudi Arabia's AI model, Alam, is actually now ranked as the world's most kind of impressive Arabic AI model, which is fantastic news for Saudi Arabia, is actually now accessible through Microsoft Azure, which is a big step because that allows developers internationally to actually access this model and do very cool things with it. So we're bringing kind of Saudi Arabia to the world. And I thought that's probably one of the coolest announcements that I've heard, because it's really kind of like entering the global stage for kind of Saudi Arabia. So yeah, that's probably my biggest highlight so far, yeah.
And how do you view the AI sector in Saudi Arabia? Obviously, you spoke about the advancements and how it's making its mark globally. But how do you see the sector?
So I think, looking in from outside, there's a lot happening here. And I think the one thing that sticks out is the fact that Saudi Arabia is putting a lot of energy into cultivating a thriving AI ecosystem. You've got all of the core components there, which not every country can say they have. You've got investment going into the ecosystem. You've got programs that are focused on uplifting homegrown talent and startups, as well as attracting foreign startups and foreign investors. At the same time, you're building the infrastructure for AI, such as kind of securing the microchips, building the data centers. I think there was a big announcement with Grok, and a US AI infrastructure kind of leader from the US has actually now said that by the end of the year is going to kind of bring 20 to 40% of its AI processing power to the kingdom. So it means that you're pretty much bringing more generative AI capabilities into the kingdom, so the kingdom can access that and the people there. So AI infrastructure is a massive part of this. And then one thing that I think a lot of people don't know about is the people. A lot of countries where governments push forward advancements in AI and have big strategies and visions, sometimes people aren't actually always behind it. They don't kind of see the value. They're not always kind of pro those kind of movements. But in Saudi Arabia, the one thing I can say is everybody is curious. They want to know, they want to learn. And I actually read something that Saudis have, about 75% of Saudis are aware of AI, which is above the global average of 51%. So fantastic news. So you've got all like the components kind of cooking away. Obviously, there's still work to be done. You have a great plan in place with Vision 2030 and the kind of Saudi kind of AI and data strategy. So yeah, positive signs.
Yeah, we have a very youthful population, and they're really interested in AI.
Yes, they are. I've spoken to lots of them, and they're really asking the right questions.
They are, and what really amazes me, and it's just beautiful to see, ethics is at the top of it. Ethics is at the forefront of the research and development AI, which is just wonderful to see.
And I think actually Saudi Arabia ranks first when it comes to transparency for AI in government. I think it's a tortoise index that talks about that. So Saudi Arabia definitely is focusing on that. And you've got Sadai's guidelines for AI, which again is one of the first to come out around kind of bringing a framework to how developers can build these more kind of transparent and ethical AI systems. So you definitely, I definitely see that happening.
You're very humble in your approach to talking about your company, but I have to talk about it, and you're very humble off camera. As the founder of Tyde.AI, you help companies build resilience in the age of generative AI.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, what inspired you to start Tyde.AI, and what challenges were you aiming to address globally?
It's a good question. So Tyde.AI is kind of a product of seeing a really big problem in the market. Where, especially in the Middle East, where you have businesses, small, large, small, medium, large, who don't actually have the budget to bring in management consultants to sort out generative AI for them. But at the same time, they are worried. They are not sure how generative AI is impacting their business, whether it's good, whether it's bad, and what their people are doing. And they're looking for someone to just guide them, a consultant that is just not going to charge them, make them bankrupt pretty much. And that's where I saw the gap. I was like, you know what? I can go in after doing so many different generative AI projects for government, private sector. I know how this works. I know what to think about, what to consider, both from an opportunity and risk perspective. So I decided to set up my own thing and go around and pretty much say, look, I can come in and help your team for 2 months and just give you some peace of mind when it comes to AI. So that's what I kind of set out to do, and so far it's been going really well. It's only been 4 months, and already I've got a pretty good portfolio of clients, and looking kind of elsewhere across the Middle East at the moment.
Wonderful. So. I like the non-bankrupt part.
It's a really big problem.
I think it is.
So yeah.
I think overcharging in some sectors, but generative AI is very important right now. What sectors would you say that you're working with more closely? It's only been 4 months, but.
Yeah, so I primarily work with kind of marketers, communications industry, PR agencies, a couple of in-house teams for kind of entities, so like marketing, marcoms, because that's my background, that's my domain expertise is in applying technology to this industry specifically. But I have been approached by kind of pharmaceuticals companies, energy as well, and in these occasions, I said to myself, like, they really need help. That's clear, but I'm currently at a space now where I'm trying to grow my team. I'm trying to grow as quickly as I can, but I can't service everybody. I can't have expertise in every single area all at once. So I'm currently building out my group of people who can come in and as kind of not subject matter experts to support with that. So yeah, usually it's and the thing about this industry about media and communications is that it's content heavy. That's the key. And generative AI excels. I mean, it generates content literally. So this industry is most impacted by generative AI. So my services kind of meet that problem head on. So yeah.
Let's talk about misconceptions. Your work focuses on helping non-technical teams integrate Gen AI into their daily operations. What are some of the misconceptions or common fears that you've encountered with people?
So the biggest one, especially in my kind of industry, again, of media, marketing, communications, is the idea that this is an IT problem, that generative AI equals technology equals IT people, developers, cybersecurity experts. They definitely have a role to play, but what teams need to be thinking about, especially non-technical teams, is to start localizing these projects within their teams. So let's say you had a marketing communications team, they want to know how they can use AI, or they want to manage the risk. Instead of just directly going to IT, they should think internally and identify an enthusiast within their team and say, I want this person to figure out what we can do with AI first. Get them creating a plan, get them owning it, the domain expert owning it, and then bringing IT in as and when is needed. So that's something that I think people need to start thinking about. Secondly, is about the idea that leaders know exactly what their people are doing with AI. So many times I've had conversations with leaders and they say, oh yeah, my team are doing nothing with AI, they're not touching it. And I've got other people who are saying, oh yeah, they're using it all the time. When I speak with the team, it's normally completely different to what the management say. They're like, yeah, we are using it, or no, we're not using it, or we're using these tools rather than these ones. So that mismatch between what leaders are thinking and doing and their vision for AI and what's happening on the ground is something that needs to be realigned. So there's a misconception there that leaders have complete oversight of what's going on. There's a lot of secrecy around AI use in the workplace. So making sure you speak with your team is really important as part of that. And I was thinking there's another one that I've come across. The idea that AI is here to replace people, that's obviously one that's kind of circulating a lot. That really is not the case. It cannot function properly. Well, not function, but it can't bring value within a vacuum. It needs humans as part of that process. So just to kind of like dispel that fear, it definitely is not part of what I do. I always am bringing together models of collaboration between people and technology and kind of sticking them together and saying, work together, you're going to be more efficient. It's never one or the other for me.
Have you ever approached a company to try to get them to kind of utilize Gen AI and they're like, nope, we don't want to, it's going to take our jobs?
So actually there was a LinkedIn conversation or like kind of thread that I was part of. There was a head of a PR firm that pretty much said, I'm sick of AI, we shouldn't be using it in our industry. And they had loads of people saying, yeah, I agree. And I go and I'm saying like, but what's the actual problem here? The problem is that people are thinking it's all about replacement. And I had a lot of people kind of angry with my comments that I made. But unfortunately, they're kind of stuck in a bubble of, we want to stay with our traditional processes and ways of doing things. But unfortunately, that doesn't have the same business value as collaborating with a machine, unfortunately, in this day and age. So you need to start thinking about how AI can complement what you're doing. So in that circumstance, I had a lot of kind of like backlash from people saying, you have no idea, like, you're not from our space. I was like, yes, I am from your space. I actually am from this industry, as well as AI. So if I approach someone for new business and they don't want to do AI, usually the conversation doesn't go anywhere. Or I talk about AI risk, because that's another thing to consider. Even if you don't want AI as part of your processes, you have to have a plan for mitigating risk because your people are probably still using it. What happens when someone enters confidential information and you don't like AI, but they've done it? So what do you do? So having those kind of guardrails in place is really a non-negotiable, regardless of whether you like AI or not. Yeah.
I agree with you. It's interesting. I mean, working in media, we've had the mentality of AI is going to take our jobs. AI is all the time. But I always compare it to print media and how we moved to digital. I hear so many stories of journalists that have been doing this for 30, 40 years. And there was always panic surrounding digital world. But no, I mean, it's everywhere. There's so many benefits to it.
For sure. I mean, there are definitely loads of benefits. I think the only thing to consider, especially with media and the use of it in the public eye, is obviously there's a lot of conversation around kind of misinformation, disinformation, deep fakes, synthetic media, and how that threatens, the idea of having trust in the media. There's definitely things that need to be managed. It isn't just like a free-for-all. But I think the world is making headway in trying to figure that out. And obviously we have guidelines in place to kind of help with that stuff. So
we do, definitely. You specialize in applying Gen AI to brand communications. Could you share an example of how AI has transformed a brand's communication strategy to optimize its workflow?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, So with these teams, I usually develop some kind of AI strategy for them. And that strategy focuses on identifying the use cases within their business that are high value, that if we brought AI into that high value task, it would be able to save X amount of time, and it's fairly easy to integrate AI, and there's a number of other things I consider. But that strategy document gives them a roadmap that says, these tasks are what you need to be optimizing with AI. This is how long it's going to take. This is what it requires in terms of budget. So I've done that a number of times. Time and time again, 3 tasks have come out on top in terms of being the most, easiest and most effective in optimizing with AI. Research, I think everyone's aware of that. Tools like Perplexity is a really good one for research. You're talking about third-party tools. But research in general, your AI is like a middleman. It's helping you do a really quick Google search almost. That's what AI is doing. So you can imagine for researchers, that can save a lot of time. Second is like data analysis, data formatting, auto-filling cells and Excel spreadsheets. That's been a really impactful area for businesses. And then finally, it's long and short form content. So this place, or the kind of realm of kind of AI, is a bit more controversial. So people are less willing to use AI in writing full pieces of content, as I'm sure you probably, is coming from your background, would agree. I also agree it should not 100% ever be written by AI. But people tend to play around with it with short form copy more so social media posting. That's where the big time saving happens. But yeah, there's still a lot of hesitation around that aspect of using AI.
I'm very curious about something. This is just my personal question, because you said you post to LinkedIn and you've seen some backlash on LinkedIn as well.
Yes.
Have you ever seen a post on LinkedIn and immediately thought this was AI generated?
Oh, for sure. There's so much out there.
I'm wondering, what are the telltale signs?
So I actually do training on this, and I teach people about what AI sounds like, because I ask them, okay, so you don't like AI written content. Define for me what AI written content is. And they're like, oh, I don't know. It's like a gut instinct. I read it and I feel like, oh, yes, that's so AI generated. But they can't actually pinpoint what it is. So if you can't pinpoint what it is, how can you tell AI to do a better job? You know what I mean? It's like kind of a conundrum for them. So generally speaking, what you got to look out for are a couple of things. Start with the verbs and the adjectives. AI tends to go for more energetic, fluffy, jargony sales language that we just don't use in general life. Instead of, and that overcomplicates sentences. So like, for example, they may say, it may use utilize instead of use.
Okay.
It uses revolutionize instead of change. It's just making all of these verbs and adjectives much more fluffy than they need to be. So that's a very clear telltale sign. Another one that people don't know as much about is something called rhetorical questions and parallel sentences. Sorry, rhetorical sentences and parallel sentences. So you may see in some cases where AI has been involved, you might read a question like, not only this and this, but also this. So it's like a sentence structure that creates energy in the sentence and a kind of like suspense. AI does this all the time. So if you ever see that kind of sentence, usually AI is involved. So that's a really good telltale sign as well. And also long sentences. We as humans like to cut things up and like mix it up. If you see AI giving you, if you see long forms of text, it's normally AI is part of that. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a couple of things.
Because I've seen posts on LinkedIn and gone, there's no way. This isn't. It sounds odd.
And it sounds like almost too professional and that's where those kind of overcomplication of language comes in. Utilize, who comprehend instead of understand. Like why bother? It's AI is just trying to be fancy.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, honestly.
Yeah.
I've seen it a lot on LinkedIn nowadays. It's more common. With Gen AI rapidly advancing, how do you advise business leaders to strike the right balance between harnessing AI's productivity potential and mitigating associated risks?
So I would say that, it really comes down to having a strategy in place that sits within guardrails. So a strategy that very clearly outlines what you're going to do with AI, which tools you're going to leverage, which use cases you're going to be exploring with AI, how you're going to support your team in taking this on board, the adoption process, the change management process. But that sits within a very clear policy. And that's where businesses sometimes don't put enough effort in, is what is the AI policy? So, and that's for any scenario that comes up with AI with your team. If your team, make a mistake or they come across a problem or, a client or a stakeholder asks, how are your team using AI? Your team need to have a bulletproof policy that kind of sits kind of on the kind of outskirts of that strategy. So anything you progress with an AI, it follows a kind of secure guardrails. And then from that, you shouldn't have a ton of problems and you should be ready to react for when things, unfortunately sometimes go wrong. But mind you, I haven't had too many cases of that in the work that I've done. But yeah, having that structure can normally help business leaders.
When you're implementing AI, how do you advise companies structurally? Where should they begin?
So we normally start with an AI audit. So that pretty much consists of interviews, questionnaires, shadowing tasks. It's pretty much us getting in with the team and understanding how they are using AI, what their aspirations are with AI, but also a level deeper, what motivates them to get up in the morning and go to work? What are the things that they don't like doing? So all of these kind of psychological indicators help us understand where they're going to be accepting of AI adoption and where they're going to be more kind of resistant. Once we have that AI audit, we're able to pretty much say, here are the use cases that we think are going to be fairly feasible to implement, aren't going to cost you too much money, are going to be high value for your business, and your team aren't going to be too resistant of them when you start implementing. They're not going to say, no, I'm not doing that. So that's where we begin. And then we move from there. So we usually, for the clients that I work with, we normally start with communications operations. So things external to the business, communicating or like working, the services they provide to clients. And then we look internally at ops, finance, HR, and that's normally how it goes.
And how do you manage the tone of voice for each company? How is that kind of adapted within AI?
Within AI. So, I mean, it all comes down to prompting, prompt engineering. So the questions that we put into tools like ChatGPT, we can craft them, we can engineer them to be able to trigger certain outputs that align with a business's tone of voice, messaging, priorities, considerations, literally everything. You can engineer the whole thing, and you don't need to be able to code to do that. So some of my training, I teach people how to prompt engineer, because that is, I believe, becoming a basic skill of a lot of the work that we do. Can you prompt engineer? Are you really good at your domain? So for yourself, if it's journalism and presenting, are you really good at that? And are you also good at kind of working with machines to a degree? That's the kind of dual skill set that I see being really important moving forward.
I was having a conversation with someone here yesterday, and we were saying there needs to be college, university classes on how to write prompts for ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I feel like if there isn't already, there probably is.
There are, in some places there are, but like this is again why I set up the business, because there weren't any trainings available to teams. Like, how do you actually put a prompt together? What is a prompt? Like, we didn't even know what a prompt was. So yeah, this is a big gap at the moment.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Speaking of training, training teams to use AI responsibly is a big part of what you're doing at Tyde.AI. What are some of the key elements of effective AI training, particularly for non-technical professionals, non-coders?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I would say training should always begin with a conversation one-on-one with the people that you're training with. Obviously, if you're training thousands of people, you'd have to find another way of managing that. But for teams where it's like under 20 people, it's really important to sit down and listen and show them that you're listening to them and their considerations when it comes to AI, what they do and don't like. That forms a kind of like trust relationship. So when you get into the training, they don't feel threatened. They don't look at you and say, who are you, telling me I need to do my job differently. The second part is making sure that training is actually focused on 50-50 domain expertise and then 50% AI. Too many people jump in and go, this is the history of AI. This is what you need to know about AI. And actually, to be able to get AI to do effective things for you, so back to prompting, you need to be really good at your job. So let's say it's a marketeer. They know that marketing is done in this way, or like a really good bit of copy is written in this way. They need to be able to translate that expertise into something that is machine readable to a prompt. They need to be able to translate that into a prompt. So if they don't know what good looks like for their industry, how are they going to tell AI to do something that's good? So that's why training should be focused on making sure that your team are really good at the core tasks outside of AI, then pair that with AI. Yeah. That's the one thing I'll say for non-technical teams. It's really important you blend
having that
the
knowledge
two.
Expertise. Yeah. Tyde.AI works with a range of clients, including companies like Mubadala, and Edelman. What are some of the biggest challenges these companies face when adopting Gen AI, and how have you helped them overcome these obstacles?
So, just trying to think some of the big obstacles. I would say for any company that I've worked with, it comes down to the chasm between technology and people. Too many people start AI projects, or I normally come in after the event where they've tried to do something and didn't work, especially for smaller companies. They've tried to push forward AI technology adoption, like everyone use this tool, please, like we want to be efficient. And the people are just left behind. They don't understand why. Like, why should they bother? What's the bigger mission here? Like, what are we doing with AI? There's too much disconnect between technology and technology and people. So what I'd say is that they found that around 80% of AI projects globally fail to some degree. And which is huge, like it's a crazy figure, and it's actually double the amount of non-AI related projects. usually it comes down to not understanding the human element that I'm saying, that technology people. You've got to align it. And that's why I speak to lots of HR teams and saying that when you've got a team driving an AI project, you need to be on board in supporting people as part of that adoption. When they're pushing forward a new tool, you need to be in there as the people kind of managers and say, do you have any questions? Do you understand this tool? Do you need training? Do you have fears? Do you want to discuss anything? Like, it's a behavioral change that we're trying to instill. And if you haven't got that balance right, people are just going to look at the technology and say, lovely, but I don't want to use it.
Yeah. So a supportive environment, would you say, is the baseline?
And getting HR involved, yeah. Like, I think it's definitely a people problem, not a tech problem when it comes to generative AI.
We're using it wrong, I think.
Yeah.
Or not in the right way. Not in the way that we could possibly be using it.
Exactly, yeah.
Let's talk about risk mitigation. We touched upon it a bit briefly. How do you approach advising AI policy and governance to ensure that businesses stay compliant while remaining innovative?
So there's a couple of components to this. It all starts with identifying owners of AI governance and risk within your team. So let's say it's a non-technical team who doesn't have access to a big digital transformation team or IT team, or they want to just keep it in-house with their own team, like a localized project. So what I would do is find a group of people that are enthusiastic about AI. From those people, identify one person that is going to take complete ownership for figuring out AI governance within your team. Get that person overseeing the development of a policy, making sure that that policy outlines every scenario relating to risk and governance. Create a governance framework, or so that enthusiastic team that you have, they are going to be part of that team that manages anything relating to risk moving forward. So it's like literally a governance framework that you're putting in place. From that, you're going to bring in experts every 6 months. You have your AI lead, you have your team of enthusiasts, and then you have a couple of experts that sit in on a call with you every 6 months. So a cybersecurity expert, a lawyer, maybe an technical AI, someone who's technical at AI, and you have a good conversation about what are the risks out there at the moment, what do we need to be thinking about, can you check our advice in this, can you check this problem here, and you just got to bring this network in every 6 months. It's all that's really needed for now for most teams. And then you're actually managing it pretty well. Like, you have a pretty good foundation to build off of. So that would be where I would start with any kind of risk mitigation in AI in a company.
Speaking about risk mitigation as well, we know AI is able to produce large volumes of content and information. How do you ensure that ethical considerations of that, such as biases or misinformation, like we talked about before, and how do you create strategies to address these for your client?
It all comes down to quality assurance processes. Like, this is, and it doesn't even have anything to do with AI. Like, in any circumstance, a robust quality assurance process. You can't change the AI systems. I mean, there is obviously a variety of AI systems that you can use as part of your work, and you can cherry pick the ones that you find to be more aligned with your kind of ethical kind of considerations and obligations. But let's say that you don't have that liberty, and you've got, let's say, ChatGPT, and you're like, okay, maybe ChatGPT's model is less transparent and less, aligned to your values than maybe Claude, for example, as being another tool. But you just got to persevere and go forward with it. So what do? You just got to have a list of questions that you ask every time you produce something with AI that's going to be going external to you, to like a stakeholder. So, is the content fair? Is there bias, as we were saying? Is it of a quality standard that meets my standards of quality? Like, am I happy with this quality that I'm seeing? Have I checked it for plagiarism? Have I run it through anti-plagiarism software? Am I actually proud of the output? Like, do I look at this and say, you know what, that's good. I'm happy with that. And there was one more that I was going to say. Are the facts correct? Is it accurate? In terms of its kind of general factuality? So, if you ask those kind of questions and you check it, you haven't got too much of a problem. I mean, for teams that don't have the resources to go away and build their own models and whatnot, this is actually fairly robust.
I can imagine human bias is also plays a role 100%, in this.
100%. And people forget about that. They're like, oh, AI systems are biased in these ways. I'm like, we are biased.
Naturally, as humans.
Yeah, so, just like you would have maybe a junior on your team who would write you a piece of content, send it through, and you're reading it and you're like, oh, well, there's bias in these ways in this document. You go back to them and say, make this more neutral, or there's a factual error there, or I don't know if this is really written very well. It's exactly the same conversation you're going to have with AI. And I think that's back to that LinkedIn conversation I had, or that like kind of comments that I was going through and you know, responding to, is that realization that we're talking about essentially a junior member of staff. There is literally no difference between generative AI and having, you know, let's say a new grad from uni, maybe doesn't have much experience in the space and is really eager to do a good job, you know?
Yeah.
That's what we should consider it as.
Exactly. I mean, it's a really great way of looking at it, I think. Yeah.
As
a leader in the AI strategy and consulting, where do you see the future of generative AI and communications heading? And are there any new opportunities or risks that people should be prepared for?
So I would say the biggest trend that we're probably going to see in this space, so like looking at AI plus kind of the common space, but I think it's fairly agnostic to all industries, is that the rise over the next like maybe 2 to 5 years of a new type of workforce, especially kind of aspiring professionals coming into the workplace, where you're going to see people building out their CVs around their AI capabilities. So let's say there's a marketer, you know, I am really good at these things. I've studied this at uni. I want to get a marketing role. Here is evidence of my ability to prompt engineer. Here are examples of work that I've done with AI. I can craft you really good prompts that are going to be able to deliver whole research projects. So that combination, I think, is going to be in demand. And this is going to impact as well the structure of companies. I think we're going to see a lot of companies that are less bottom heavy. They're going to be more top heavy. So juniors are going to be kind of stepping up to mid-level roles with their ability to use AI and produce work really quickly. I do see a little bit of a risk there in terms of juniors and like their place in the job market, because obviously if you've got a mid-level management using AI and they can do everything really quickly, then what's the point of a junior? So I think there's definitely some workforce issues that may be arising in this space. Any other areas that I consider? I think what we're going to start seeing is more customizable tools without needing to code. So in any space, you know, for example, journalism, you're going to start seeing tools that are specific to journalism only and do a really good job at or not a really good job,
I've
to
seen
a degree.
Few at GPT already.
Have you? Yeah,
it's amazing.
Some of them are really good, but obviously, again, like I don't support, you know, AI being completely kind of automated in any of the work that it does, but it's going to get a lot better at these very specific use cases. So I think those are the two trends that I see impacting non-technical teams in the future.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I've actually tested it. I've written an article fully. Like I work in politics, so I wrote a story, and then I asked ChatGPT. I gave them a few quotes and asked them to write like a similar story with the same theme.
Yeah,
it was amazing. It did it in a matter of seconds.
Really? Yeah, it's quite.
There were a few
scary.
errors in it, accuracy-wise, and misinformation, but it was amazing.
That is fantastic.
I want to ask you. You seem to be very active on LinkedIn. In terms of juniors, fresh graduates, what would you advise them as we're growing into this world of AI, career-wise? What would you advise them to do now?
So if we're talking about graduates going to, again, non-technical fields, I would say get your situation together about, you know, get your statement ready about what you think of AI and what you're doing about the AI's impact on your industry. So I actually advise people at the end of my training sessions, regardless of what you think of AI, make sure that you have a one-line statement that you say when anyone ever asks you around generative AI, like, what is your position on this? Everyone should have a position on it. And it shouldn't just be like, oh, I'm not sure. You know, it needs to be, I've tested it in these ways. This is what I think. But moving forward, these are the things I'm going to do. So there's both like a kind of like being a thought leader a little bit in that space in your field. And then secondly, it's around the prompt engineering skills. You need to have that. Have a little portfolio of work that you've done in collaboration with AI, specifying how much you did, how much AI did, and literally show employers, I can effectively do that task, which I know is high value for you, in collaboration with AI without there being any risk, because I've got a really clear idea about how to check this work and make sure that it's world class. Honestly, this is what recruiters are looking for now.
Yeah, it's wonderful advice. Well-rounded, right. Really. Right. I think that's our time. Thank you so much, Isabella. I really appreciate your time and your insights. And I know for a fact so many people, I mean, non-technical industries really, really could use this advice. especially fresh graduates. So yeah,
Perfect.
amazing.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for your time. This has been the Gain Podcast with Isabella Wilson, the founder of Tyde.AI. Thank you so much.
Thanks.